As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries.
So good, we started it twice. How about that? Hey, listen, welcome in. It is, if it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever the hell you are, whenever you're listening to this, we really don't care as long as you press play and sit and listen to the whole thing. I am Ryan DeMay. I will be your host tonight. We've got with us some of my trusty and rusty friends. We've got Ray the Green Dog and probably the rustiest of them all, just due to his Irish heritage, his hair color, and probably the carpet and the drapes matching. I'm going to say hello to the Lush Factor, Aaron Lushy. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just want, if I have to do this again, when Matt's name comes up, I want it, like it says, Joe knows turf. I'd like it to say Lushy across Matt's name.
You can say Lushy. We can. I'm sure there's a way through the magic of the soundboard that we can probably do that and make it happen. John Perry, should anybody, for the entirety of this show, in its past history, in its future, ever take away the namesake of Joe Knows Turf? Should it always be Joe, or should anybody else?
I would advise anybody who's thinking of doing this not to.
See, and that's the thing is Joe fits, phonetically it fits, and personality-wise, who doesn't like an opportunity?
No. I want mine on the intro credits. That's where I want it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to take any. Look, I don't want to start a feud with Joe. I don't want to start one there. Hey,
there's already. I think Joe's already got too many. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got enough.
You're the fan favorite, man. You're the backup quarterback. You're everybody's fan favorite today, and we're glad to have you. Seriously. So if you're wondering,
I'm the Michael Bishop of the Pats.
Is Michael Bishop? There's a blast from the past. Hey, listen, Tom Brady, greatest second string quarterback story of all time, right?
Yeah, 100%.
There you go. So if you're not aware, Lushy, huge
Thanks,
Boston
Mo Lewis.
sports fan. There you go, right there. All right, so listen, a lot to cover. Matt is working the late shift this week, and so we thought it'd be nice to bring in a third panelist on the show here tonight, because there is, there is some good news. We got a couple of returns. There's some good stuff out there. But obviously with the way the world's going, we're going to jump right into the headlines and break this apart.
Nothing to fear here. This is just the news.
All right, starting off here, I got a couple of things going on. So, really, we're just going to kind of fly through these, gentlemen, as we go down here. So, our first topic here tonight, of course, you may be surprised by the best lawn alternative in the state of Indiana. All right, our article here from the Indy Star goes something like this. Before the high heat of summer weekends and mixed among the morning bird songs and the sweet smell of cut grass wafts through Indiana's neighborhoods, some Hoosiers that are growing Kentucky bluegrass, some opt for ryegrass. Others are looking for the perfect blend to blanket their yards. For this edition of Scrub Hub, we try to answer our Ariel's submitted question, is there a good turf grass replacement that's dog-friendly and low or no mow? Man, tall order, Ariel. I have a dog, and I've heard clover lawns are a good no-mow option, but don't want to plant an invasive species. There's no straightforward answer here. There are plenty of potential alternatives. So we get broken down here. We get the short answer from one of our friends, Dr. Cale Bigelow, who is a turfgrass science professor at Purdue University. And he says there are two sometimes competing aspects to answer this question: durability and maintenance. It's a tall order, Bigelow said, to get both things on the same plate. Pets can damage lawns by doing their business on grass and even just walking and running across the yard. This means the homeowner might want to opt for a yard filled with something more durable, which is typically a faster growing grass. These, of course, will require more maintenance, and so certainly we've got some issues there. So we go into it here. There's kind of a counterpoint here. So there's a gentleman named Aaron Stump. Aaron Stump. He's the Habitat Programs Manager for the Indiana Wildlife Federation. Cautions folks to considering no-mow options to temper their expectations. That's a good point, Aaron. There is no ecologically friendly way to have a standard lawn that we see in most of our residential neighborhoods. Stump wrote an email. A low grass, constantly disturbed by mowing and free of weeds, is not natural and cannot be maintained in an ecological manner. If you truly want to no-mow lawns, there is no option is simply to stop mowing. Okay, well, that's an interesting point. I think the zoning code folks might have something to say about that, but let's see here. So he says if opting for something completely different, such as clovers, there are a handful of non-invasive choices. So they go on to talk about sweet clovers and how those are considered invasive species, which they are in most states, including Indiana. And then they talk about microclovers. So they kind of go back into this, talking about some different options here, some low-maintenance options. Talk about Kentucky bluegrass, because it's slow-growing, might potentially cut down on the number of times a homeowner needs to mow. Regardless of where you live, there is not a perfect grass, says Bigelow. You can't check every single box. If you want to rank by criteria, tick off 3 or 4 big things for you. All right, so they kind of go down here and talk a little bit, a couple more quotes I want to pick out from this gentleman before we discuss it. Short lawns don't slow water moving across the surface, nor do their shallow roots filter the water traveling through the soil, Stump says. As a result, lawns lead to polluted and warm water entering our waterways and degrading their quality. So, we kind of go down here, and that's sort of the thing. It says, the last thing here is, it's hard to have something worse than a lawn. A non-native plant that requires constant watering, mowing, fertilizing, and herbicide to maintain, Stump wrote. The best advice I can give, and it's no small ask, is to reconsider how our properties interact with the world around us and adjust accordingly. There simply isn't a place for expansive lawns in the modern world given what we know about their impact. Gentlemen, what the hell is going on in Indiana? Did I miss something? Are they at will applying restricted use pesticides and mowing their grass so short that apparently it doesn't slow down water and defies all the laws of physics? I'm at a loss here. I'm trying to understand
and it
Mr.
heats
Stump's
it up.
position here.
It
And it heats it up
warmer
somehow.
Water. And it heats it up.
And it heats
it
up
runs off. It heats up the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have a little question again. You go no mo, right? What are we gonna do about the ticks, the mosquitoes, and the bugs that are
Or the
present
rats.
in high amounts in a non-mowed area? I mean, what are we going to do about that? Because I still, for lack of a better alternative, think that in highly populated areas, mowed and maintained grass starts to become like a very good idea, at least from a health standpoint.
So again, the paramount thing I heard here that Mr. Stump was saying is, clearly he's got an agenda, and I get it, I understand it, but I don't agree with hardly any of it because I don't think it's very well researched and understanding of what turf does as a crop and what it certainly does in urban areas, right, and rural areas alike. So I'm just I'm at a loss here, and it's just an interesting article that I thought was another one of those lawn hit pieces. I have to give the Indie Star credit and the author credit for reaching out to an actual turfgrass professor, trying to get this information. Right, that typically we see folks reach out to maybe an extension agent, which nothing wrong with that, but I think it's always good to go to the source there. So, Indie Star, fair and balanced reporting. Although, Mr. Stump got the last word and, tried to ram it
I think
down
that
our
article came. Yeah, it came from a slightly. Look, you don't have to have a perfectly manicured, super dark green. Oh my God! Look at that lawn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can have the lawn that gets cut every other week. Maybe not desirable. Maybe not 100% healthy for the turf. Maybe it's got some weeds in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want to do. Have at it. You don't have
yeah.
to have it. Nobody's ramming it down your throat. And Ray and I were talking before the show, if you want to have more pollinator areas, you want to put more planting beds in, that's absolutely fine. But if you start, want to do, all right, I'll do a synthetic lawn. Well, that's great. That's going to be what, Ryan? 10, 15 degrees warmer when the sun's hitting it? Put a synthetic turf down at minimum?
Significantly more than that.
All right.
And actually, funny you should mention syn turf, because in my city, synthetic turf is actually highly regulated.
I believe it.
It's highly regulated. And you know why it's highly regulated?
Microplastics?
Actually, it's because the synthetic turf is a poor filter for materials of concern entering the waterway versus growing grass.
So that was going to be my point, and that's a great way, and how a lot of how do I want to say this, permitting bodies, right, within the United States, particularly here in the Midwest right now, are treating synthetic turf. They're treating it as an impervious surface, right? So, if you ever pay your water and sewer bill and they calculate how much impervious surface you have, that to me, right, is probably something that you hear people talk about urban sprawl and this and that and everything else, and concrete jungles and urban heat islands and things like that. I don't want to shift the blame or obfuscate from the issue of, hey, turf versus natural turf versus an unmaintained or no-mow lawn, something like that. But I think there's a greater degree of risk to the environment by saying, hey, you know what, that farmer's field over there, man, that would make a great housing development. Or, hey, fuck this, let's put up another strip mall while we're at it, right? Because we need another nail salon, a bar, and a Dollar General.
I need another
right
6
here
acres of asphalt.
Exactly.
I want another 6 acres of asphalt.
And there's things that they have to do to, to slow down the water, right, in terms of slowing the velocity down, that they have to treat the water and improve the quality of it before it just goes right into the storm sewer. But turf is doing that naturally as it goes. So I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but Mr. Stump, come on the show. Come talk to us. We'd love to educate you and learn more about your position on the bane of existence of modern lawns. So thank you very much, sir. All right, moving on to our next article here. We've got U.S. quietly asks shipping companies to ship Russian fertilizer? Question mark.
What?
If you're on audio. Yeah. All right, this is out of Bloomberg. The U.S. government is quietly encouraging agriculture and shipping companies to buy and carry more Russian fertilizer. According to people familiar with the efforts, the sanctioned fears have led to sharp drop in supplies, fueling a spiral in global food costs. The effort is part of a complex and difficult series of negotiations underway involving the United Nations to boost deliveries of fertilizer, grain, and other farm products from Russia and Ukraine that have been disrupted by President Vladimir Putin's invasion of his southern neighbor. U.S. and European officials have accused the Kremlin of using food as a weapon, preventing Ukraine from exporting. Russia denies that, even as it has attacked key ports, blaming the shipment disruptions on sanctions imposed by the U.S. and its allies over the invasion. The EU and the U.S. have built exemptions into the restrictions on doing business with Russia to allow trade in fertilizer, of which Moscow is a key global supplier. But many shippers, banks, and insurers have been staying away from the trade out of fear that they could inadvertently fall afoul of the rules. Russian fertilizer exports are down 24% this year. U.S. officials, surprised by the extent of the caution, are seemingly in a paradoxical position of looking for ways to boost them. The U.S. push underlines the challenge facing Washington and its allies as they seek to increase pressure on Putin and his invasion and to also limit the collateral damage to the global economy, which is heavily dependent on commodity supplies from Russia, ranging from natural gas and oil to fertilizer and grains. Prices for all those have spiked since the war started in February, a point Putin regularly makes in his public efforts to undermine support for sanctions. Washington sent a representative to UN-led talks in Moscow earlier this month. The supply issues, according to people familiar with the situation who spoke on a condition of anonymity to discuss matters that aren't public. Inadequate fertilizer deliveries this year could also affect next year's crops. The White House did not immediately respond for comment. So, this goes on to basically say that, the sanctions are holding back a lot of what is out there currently, and it's basically fear within the market, right? Shipping companies remain extremely wary in the Black Sea, and given the sanctions, security fears. That's the other thing, is that, just getting ships in and out of there. There's a blockade of Russian ships through Ukraine ports and things like that. So a very tenuous situation, but, gentlemen, it sounds like, the U.S. government and its allies have basically said, hey, listen, we really don't want you to do business with Russia, but there's a few things that we would say, if you do that, it's no big deal. And clearly a lot of these companies have just said, all I heard was don't do business with Russia. That's all I heard.
Right,
so I'm not going to do business with Russia. And I'm not going to put myself, my employees, my companies, my contractors, my vendors, anybody else on the limb for you saying that, well, in some cases it's okay. It's okay. So, where do you guys stand? Let's hear it, Ray.
Okay, here's a known problem, is that, did you know that Russia is actually blockading movement of agricultural goods out of the Ukraine?
Yeah.
They're actually doing that because, note everybody, the Ukraine is not being sanctioned by the United States. However, they have a problem getting things like wheat, barley, or fertilizer commodities out of the Ukraine because Russia is preventing movement of those goods out of the Ukraine. So that is actually a problem because, like we talked about on previous shows, barley is important. Wheat is important, and
absolutely
the fertilizer commodities that the Ukraine produces, thanks to their petroleum reserves, are also very important to the rest of the world. But Putin has directed his military to prevent movement of those goods out of the Ukraine. He's essentially holding the Ukraine hostage right now, and the rest of the world, for that matter.
And really, I mean, if you think about it, in military tactics or whatever, is without having to necessarily invade, you encircle the city and you wait and just starve them out, right? You either make them surrender.
You wait till you wait till they die. You wait till they die.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, one die or surrender. So
can't blame companies that don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because they know that it's a slippery slope of, do I can get product A, but maybe product B I think I can get, and C I think is all right, and then the government comes back and says, no, you weren't supposed to touch those. Now we're going to fine you for everything that you've done, and you're going to get taxed and fined, and now we're going to shut you down. You can't do it, this, that, or whatever. I don't blame them whatsoever for not wanting to touch that. That is a slippery slope to even go near.
And I think that's the larger issue, is at what point are you going to see companies, and I think it's one of those things, right, that you're going to have one or two that have to step out on the ledge, and the rest probably will. But it's going to be one of those things. Is it going to be somebody that is either forced to, out of business considerations for themselves, right? Because hey,
Right.
if we don't get this
They're
stuff,
hungry.
like what are we going to have? What are we going to have to sell? Or it's going to get so bad in the marketplace that the government's going to step in and say, listen, like, we're not asking you anymore. We're telling you, you're going to go get this stuff. And if you have to go get it from them, go get it. So, you know, this was always, I think this was always destined to happen. It's a game of chicken, right? It's encircling the city, but instead of encircling just the city, right, and choking them out, I mean, invariably, it's also the rest of the world that's, you know, paying a price here, literally paying a price, you know, at the grocery store, at the pump, and a variety of other places too, that you're not going to see relief from, at least in any appreciable way, in my estimation, until this all ends, peacefully or otherwise. So we'll see what happens, but definitely something to keep your eyes on, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move on to our final headline here. And Ray, if there's anything I know about you, you certainly love a good explosion story. So I included that here in the headlines. Actually, I think Matt actually did this. So a 3-week shutdown has begun for one of the nation's largest liquefied natural gas export plants after an explosion knocked it out of commission. A good reason to send everybody home for 3 weeks, by the way, because I have no underwear left because I've completely shit through all of them during this explosion. A Freeport facility is among the country's largest exporters, processing about 1/5, 20% of America's liquid natural gas supply, much of which is transported to Europe on cargo ships. Freeport LNG, which opened the facility in 2002, announced the disruption early Wednesday morning. The U.S. Coast Guard set up a 2-mile radius security zone around the facility after the explosion. I like how the company, I'm sorry I'm editorializing here while I'm reading, but I have to. They announced the disruption.
Disruption. Just a minor disruption.
A disruption would be, you know, farting at the dinner table. This is a fucking explosion at a place that handles 20% of the liquefied natural gas in America. I would use a different term if I were that company, but I understand why you would want to understate that a little bit. So, gas prices
like,
jumped.
I was going to say that would almost be like when in Better Off Dead, when she was drinking Pappy's moonshine and she lit her cigarette. That's a disruption.
That's a definite disruption.
There's no doubt about it. So, gas prices in Europe jumped after news of the explosion spread, with fears growing about the missed natural gas shipments to the continent so heavily reliant on energy imports. The domestic natural gas futures market dropped for similar reasons, a typical response to any event that throws uncertainty into projections for future service. In Texas, that's 2.1 billion cubic feet of natural gas per day that loses an international outlet, meaning more supply will be available in the U.S. during the 3 weeks of repair. More supply for existing demand means a lower price. It's unclear how much this will affect electricity prices in Texas, but the boon in available supply will put downward pressure on the prices. Natural gas exports from the Texas's Freeport facilities totaled nearly 684 billion cubic feet in 2021. The facility is able to pump out about 2.1 billion cubic feet per day. Damn. The facility is estimated to process about between $5 and $7 billion annually. Wow. So, you know, basically they just go on to say that, you know, energy prices are rising from a multitude of reasons, and this incident will just add further fuel to the fire. Pun fully intended. I have to admit, they had to write that as a pun. There's just no way they didn't. And if they didn't, they've got a shitty editor. So I'm just going to say this is, you know, Ray, I'll ask you the question. Is this another case of what we talked about in our last burn and return, where I would love to know the cause of it. You know, we talked about all the conspiracy theories and all that, but I think we kind of landed on the fact that I think people, literally the human capital is run ragged at a lot of these places. There's probably less help than there ever has been. You're trying to make stuff work because you can't get parts, or things are in short supply, long lead times, whatever the case might be. And you hope that doesn't happen at the goddamn natural gas plant, but here we fucking are.
Does.
So what do you think?
It does. You know, what I think is that this is another case of the whole skeleton crewing and now the lack of supply. And the reason why we even have a lack of supply is because China, with their zero COVID policy, has essentially shut down the facilities that manufacture the essential components and parts, whatever, that go into, say, a circuit board for a controller for an industrial plant. And so the effects are just going to keep on rippling out, like what happens when I throw a rock into the middle of a pond. It's just going to keep on rippling out. And I don't see this ending anytime soon because, for example, I know that China is fully committed to zero COVID. In fact, China is the only country in the world that is continuing to pursue zero COVID. And this just has a global effect on the rest of the world. And there's no good way out of it because us in the United States and Europe, we cannot instantaneously start producing all of the components and items that we outsource production to China with. You know, we just can't all of a sudden snap our fingers and say, okay, we're going to start making circuit boards in Michigan again, for example. We can't do that. Not happening, right? We can't do that because a long time ago we made a decision that manufacture of that kind of item is going to get outsourced to China for various reasons.
Yeah. Well,
we didn't want the waste.
Something
we didn't want the waste that came from it.
No,
we don't want the
that's gonna be
waste.
part of it. Or
we don't want the waste or the explosions. However, you know,
there was a few.
I have to make a little commentary in that for me, I have a personal issue with the concept of exporting danger and risk and environmental contamination to a foreign country where they basically have little care for the human life and the environment. Because my God, look at how well exporting chemical manufacture to India worked out. Just to name a few case studies, right? I mean, how well did that work out? And now, even exporting that to China, how well is that working out? Because even pre-COVID, there was issues. So, you know, what are we doing? And are people even thinking through the long-term or wider effects of these decisions? Because, oh yes, there are not a lot of chemical factories, for example, in the United States, and there's not a lot of manufacturing facilities in the United States anymore. But are we coming to regret that? I'm just asking, are we going to regret that?
Listen, I don't know if I have many regrets in my life, except for if I was in an explosion in a liquefied natural gas plant. I would regret that. Okay, I'm just saying.
I would too.
regret it.
I would too. I would too.
That'd be
I would regret it
not
too.
a place I'd want to be. Yeah,
Gosh,
it's I think it's supply chain. It's everything is. I mean, anything you want to get, you have to wait for. Absolutely anything. I mean, whether it be you're ordering parts for your vehicle. I mean, I have a buddy who's got a truck that's a diesel truck that's been out for 18 weeks. He's waiting for 2 parts. 18 weeks they've had his truck. I mean,
Wow.
like, that's
Yikes.
absurd.
Mhm.
Like, you know, last time he was like, "Oh, it's been 10 weeks. Now we're at 14. Now it's at 18." It clicks off month by month by month, and that's 6 to 8 weeks to order. You know, if you want to order a new meter, we have meters that die in the city that got to get a new one. Well, that's 6 to 8 weeks. What do we do? Well, nothing. We can't turn the water on. Matt was talking about boards that take 6 to 8 months if you're lucky to get them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I have a feeling we have friends in the Discord showing some things that they're doing to improvise and adapt and overcome what they're running into in their job place. And it's not what the norm. It's the new norm of, hey, we got to it's almost post-apocalyptic where you got to we're going to have to wire this, jump this, run this. We're going to have to rig it to get it to run. And then all of a sudden something can go by, you can bypass a safety feature. I wouldn't want them doing that at a natural gas facility.
Hey man, it's gonna be
I don't
okay.
know.
I've done this
Yeah,
many times.
yeah.
Something that can wipe a town off the face of the map.
You see,
I don't know. I don't know if I want that to go kapoo.
Yeah, that's just where for me, I know how a lot of these industrial facilities, they're extremely safe, actually, especially the ones operated within the United States, provided the safety systems built into these facilities are all in working order and somebody has not had to bypass it with a chewing gum wrapper and a length of baling wire. Okay, I know. I mean, and I'm pretty sure that I joke about it, but that might well be what is having to happen in a lot of these facilities. Oh, the safety cutoff is malfunctioning, but we got to keep this place running. So, oh Lord. Okay, the foil from a chewing gum wrapper and 12 inches of baling wire. We're going to have to make this bitch run. That's it. Without
Hey,
the
man,
safety feature.
I do this with my Can-Am Roadster all the time, and it makes the girls explode. We're gonna do it this way. All right, let's go to our favorite segment. Roll that.
Joe knows turf. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today because Joe knows turf.
This could never be replaced.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this segment, if you're new to the show, audio or visual, this is a segment known as Joe Knows Turf. Joe Knows Turf, first of all, is brought to us through the magic of television and our good friends at the OG, the former Organic. I don't know exactly where he stands right now with his name. He's in a tough spot label-wise, but Joe, the Lawn Warrior, is our sponsor of this segment. We thank him kindly for that. A great friend of the program, indeed. So this segment is usually something that's sent to us for us to inspect and give our professional guidance and or reaction to somebody making statements and whether they're true or not true. And we will see what they say and maybe even offer some alternatives if they so exist. So, without further ado, J Pink, let's see this week's submission and what we're working with here.
500 square feet each, and in one plot we're going to test the pipe.
You got to back up. You got to go back to the beginning. Sorry if I timestamped you or something like that.
Yeah,
but
you absolutely timestamped me.
I'm sorry. It was better than another stamp I could have done.
Oh my gosh.
Did you really pay $300 for this little bottle?
Hand stamp, dude. Come on.
This is a $12 bottle of herbicide, and this is a $300 bottle of herbicide.
Please
Pause.
don't tell me you spent that.
Okay, for those of you listening in audio, this is a video from Princess Cut Lawn Care. YouTube channel,
Mm.
and the creator there went ahead and held up in one hand the Bio Advanced all-in-one weed killer and crabgrass killer as well in one hand. So if you are pros, I believe, Ray, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially like Q4 for homeowners, right?
Yeah, it's a consumer version of Q4. Exactly.
Okay. So if you're familiar with that, pros, if you're listening along. And in his right hand is Pylex. It's a 4-ounce bottle of Pylex. All right? So let's play this and see what he's got to say.
And this is a $300 bottle of herbicide.
Please don't tell me you spent that much on this.
When it comes to weed killers, do you really get what you pay for? Today we're going to paint some lines in the grass, test out each one of these and see which one does better. Let's do this. Now most people associate weed killers with herbicides like this, but the reality is there are just some weeds that these won't control, which is where a guy like this comes into play. This is Pylex and it costs $300 for this little 4-ounce bottle. But why in the world would somebody want to spend such a large amount of money for a little bottle of weed killer? First, we have to take a look at exactly what it is. Pylex is an HPPD inhibitor. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to act like I know exactly what that means. But essentially what it is it prevents photosynthesis in the weeds, which result in them bleaching out and then they die. Now, if that sounds familiar to another popular herbicide on the market, that's because it is. This is Tenacity, and it's also an HPPD inhibitor just like Pylex. And for some of you guys that might be new to lawn care, Tenacity is a very popular herbicide in the lawn care community, and it's been praised as one of the only herbicides that you could use while seeding new grass. Now, both of these herbicides are listed to control a wide variety of weeds, but there are 2 weeds in particular that Pylex controls that sets it apart from every single herbicide on the market. Now, the first weed that it does an excellent job at controlling is goosegrass, and anybody who's had a goosegrass infestation knows just how hard it can be to control it. And when it comes to controlling it, there's nothing on the market that does it better than Pylex. The second weed that it does an excellent job controlling is Bermuda grass in cool season lawn. Now this is going to come really handy for all the people that live in the transition zone and have fescue lawns and Kentucky bluegrass lawns, and they're starting to have Bermuda creeping into there. Pylex is going to do a great job killing it. And also it goes without saying, now that we're on the topic, Pylex is only for cool season lawns, not for warm season. So you're probably asking yourself right now, which one?
What do you think, Ray?
Ooh.
What do you think? What do you think?
Okay.
It's probably a safe thing. It's probably a safe thing to say. It's probably a safe
thing to say. However, here's where it goes awry. One, you do not need Pylex to control goosegrass. Number 2, Pylex is not the best thing to use if you're trying to remove Bermuda grass from a cool season turf area. You know, that's like 2 little bits of information that I would like to see, corrected. Lest somebody think that they spend $300 and that is the answer to the Bermuda grass issue. Conversely, if somebody should have a goosegrass issue in their cool season lawn, there is a less expensive and easier to use alternative versus
which would be
trying to apply a claim. Claim Extra is a very effective control for goosegrass. And in fact, Lushy, we were talking about a claim.
Just ordered some.
I think this morning. Yeah, this morning. Yes.
We were. Yep.
One of these weeds am I trying to control? Well, the short answer is none of them. Since Pylex is also listed to kill a wide variety of grassy and broadleaf weeds, I'm going to be testing out its use on a more broad spectrum. Now, I understand spending $300 on it to use it as a general purpose herbicide is a little bit overkill. However, I do have some tough to control grassy weeds back there that no matter what I apply to it, it seems like they don't go away. So I'm actually really excited to see what it does to it. This is my backyard, and it hasn't been
Shouldn't we ID those first?
Yeah, well, that's an important part. But the $300 4-ounce bottle on his small yard, what do you think? How long do you think that will last him?
Let's do the math real quick. J Pink, go ahead and can you?
He's got what, 2,000 square feet total, 2,500.
All right, let's just do the math right here on the fucking video, and settle this price thing for a second, because the price of the bottle is one of the most misleading and terrible metrics to use. So, what is 8,008? Oh, boob. Yeah, got it.
It's his income.
That's his salary. That's
Per
his
year.
lowly salary as the producer of Bird of Return on his.
that's-
I think it's a 20. I think it's a 20-year
That's
contract actually.
That's in pesos.
Yeah. That's in pesos.
Okay.
I can buy some guacamole
Okay,
with
so-
this. This is great.
So if you've got the calculator out, right, Ryan? Average
So here we
use
go.
rate on a
Well, I'm gonna
cool
go full rate.
season
Let's-
turf,
Mm-hmm.
ounce and a half. Send it, Ryan. Send it.
Yep,
Ounce and
so
a half
full
per
ounces.
acre.
I'm looking at the
So
label
we
right
know
now.
here's-
Ounce and a half.
All right. So here we go. So we
That's
got
per
4
acre. Oh
fluid
wait,
ounces
that's
in
an
the
ounce and a
bottle.
half per acre.
So
Yes,
we have
sir.
4 fluid
Ounce and a half
ounces
per
in the
acre.
bottle,
Mm-hmm.
divided by 1.5, which is our max rate that we would use on a per acre basis, right?
Mhm.
All right,
Mhm.
so we're going to cover 2.66666 acres, repeating, and we're going to go ahead and multiply that number by 43.56. So we're going to use that as M as an abbreviation for 1,000 square feet, so that's 43.56 M. So right there, right, we should be able to cover 116,160 square feet. All right, so let's go ahead and divide 300 divided by 116.16. And this is going to give us our dollar per thousand. So, Lushy, if you're an applicator at home and you've got to use a 1.5 ounce rate of this product, you are spending $2, and we'll just go ahead and round up nicely and make it $2.60 per thousand.
Per thousand.
Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad
not
at
bad.
all.
Specialty herbicide.
For a very good herbicide. Not bad.
Right.
That's
Mhm.
not
So-
bad. Not when you get a. So there's the other stuff that's out that is so.
Okay. So now let's go ahead and use the Bio Advance, which I just looked up. He has it at 13, but through the magic of inflation, it's already at 14 on Amazon. Bezos is hungry. He's hurting.
I got a 20. I
He
got
looks
a
like he's wasting
29
them.
ounce bottle for $34.09 on Do My Own.
The
29 ounces.
the Walmart version that he's using is the 5,000 square foot bottle. So we're gonna go ahead and take
Okay.
$14. It's $13.98 if you're at Walmart, by the way, but we'll call it $14 here, and we're gonna divide that. Well, hey, we got to do the math here real quick. So that bottle covers 5,000 square feet, so we already know that. So $14 divided by 5,000 square feet gives us a answer of no 5 M. Sorry, 14 divided by 5. 14 divided by
280.
5. So you're at $2.80 per thousand.
Mm-hmm.
So with our watered down product, our consumer grade product, we're at $2.80 per thousand, and on our professional grade product, we're at $2.60 per thousand. Now, we haven't talked about the use cases, but let's let this play out and see how he sets up this experiment. I'm interested to see.
Treated for weeds this season or last season. No pre-emergent, no post-emergent, nada. But luckily for us, we have a full-blown salad bar back here that needs to be taken care of. So not only are we going to test out Pilex today, we're also going to test out this $12 bottle of BioVance I got at my local Home Depot. It's a 3-way herbicide. It's supposed to kill both grassy weeds and broadleaf weeds. Is it possible this $12 herbicide does a better job than a $300 bottle of herbicide? Let's find out. So we're going to paint off 2 sections of the lawn, 500 square feet each, and in one.
I'm trying to think, Ray, of other than crabgrass, what, and help me out here because I'm really just like thinking about this on the spot. What other weeds would you put these 2 products head to head on? Is Pilex on like
Almost-
clover
almost none.
or anything else? Yeah.
Almost
I don't
none,
think there's
because
a-
you see, there's no fair overlap, because you see that BioAdvanced product is a very good pick for general broadleaves and crabgrass, whereas, if somebody wants to break out the Pilex, I can see doing that if they're invaded by nimblewill, bentgrass, or goosegrass. You see, there's like a diverging use case scenario that I don't think it would be fair to put up Pilex next to a 3-way plus quinclorac, for example. It's not fair. Don't you agree? It's not fair.
No,
at all.
I don't. I don't
They're
think
two
so.
different.
and
They're two different animals.
Yeah,
that's
they're two
what I'm
different.
saying. Is so like to just two different use cases. There's not a lot of crossover here. So all right, let's see where he takes us. If you want to jump forward, it looks like we have a treatment A, a treatment B here. He's talking about how to mix. That's all good stuff. How to
Broadleaf
apply.
weeds.
Let's
And judging by the look of my lawn, there's a whole bunch of dandelions back here. So I know it's going to do a good job, or theoretically should do a good job killing them.
feel that beat.
Hi guys, so it's been a week. We're over here in plot A right now where we just sprayed the Pilex. And if you take a look at these grassy weeds down here, you can see it did a great job bleaching it out. I'm not exactly sure what weeds these are, but the thing about grassy weeds are sometimes you won't even know you have them until you treat for them because they can hide in plain sight.
Pause.
So we're randomly spraying herbicides just to see them lighten up.
So
Like, did you get that same fit, Jive?
No, my concern went to HPPD inhibitors and their known bleaching of perennial ryegrass and certain older species of tall fescue, right? So, you know, for instance, tenacity, I'm not sure what the critical rates are in Pilex off of memory, but tenacity in particular, anything over, I think, when you're at 5 or above, you're going to see bleaching on perennial ryegrass, not to the extent that you're going to kill perennial ryegrass,
You'll
but you'll
see it
stun
on.
it, you'll bleach it.
You'll bleach it at 4. I just ran some at 4 ounces per acre, and it bleached it.
It snowed.
I'm allowed to
It
do
snowed.
that.
It's fine.
It
I know.
snowed. It
All right,
snowed a
so-
little, and
Just a little bit. All right. It was after the lime application.
It's very clear that we have some kind of invasive grass over here growing. Now let's take a look at the broadleaf weeds. It did a really good job killing these broadleaf weeds I have. This is a dandelion right here. You can see that it's bleached out and it looks like it's dead. I'm pretty confident that once we mow this a time or two, it's going to disappear and it's going to be completely gone. All right, so we're over here in plot B, which is the bio advanced plot. And if you take a look down here, you can see it did a good job on these broadleaf weeds right here. These are dandelions, and it looks like, you know, there's a little bit of green left to them, but it looks like it definitely did some damage to them. So over time, once I mow this a few times, we'll see if they start to disappear. And if not, I'll make sure I do a second application. So when it comes to broadleaf weeds, the Bio Advanced did a decent job putting a dent in it.
Pause. Go back to that a little bit.
What did they just say at the bottom? Something about triclopyr?
No, so Bio Advanced did a surprisingly good job killing clover. I did not expect that, as it does not contain triclopyr. Well, Ray, for the audience at home, clue me in as to why the Bio Advanced did such a good job and remarkably well at controlling clover.
that is because the Bio Advanced is carrying a significant amount of quinclorac, and quinclorac can be extremely effective in controlling clovers, especially when combined with your conventional 3-way. Of course, ideal situation would be if, say, you did triclopyr and quinclorac. That is actually the premium treatment for clover. But the Bio Advanced product kind of hit it right without being too expensive. I mean, it worked. You know, the standard is 3-way plus some quinclorac, and you can pick up clover, you can pick up crabgrass, and you can pick up dandelion, and all do that at a fairly economical price. Because, by the way, this is not a fair comparison, because you could apply your own 3-way tank mixed with bulk quinclorac and do it at fairly economical prices. So, this is just not fair, right? Lushy, this is not a fair comparison.
Nope, it's not.
So when it comes to broadleaf weeds, the Bio Advanced did a decent job putting a dent in it. But I'm taking a look around here at plot B, and I don't see any damage to any grassy weeds. So if you take a look around the base of this tree right here, you can see there's a bunch of grassy weeds surrounding it. And I made sure to spray those really good with the Bio Advanced, but I don't see any damage done to it. So once this experiment is all done, I'm going to go ahead and broadcast spray Pylex across my whole lawn and see if it does any damage to any of these other invasive grasses that we have. If you guys want to see the results, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram because I'll be posting them there. So what do I think about these herbicides? Well, they both did a decent job killing broadleaf weeds. I would say that the Pylex did a little bit better job than the Bio Advanced, but that doesn't mean you should go run out, spend $300 on a bottle just to kill broadleaf weeds in your lawn, because there are other much cheaper options out there like Speed Zone and T-Zone that will only cost you about $30 a bottle, and they will do a much better job than either of these herbicides at killing things like dandelions and thistle. Now when it comes to grassy weeds, the Bio Advanced did a terrible job. In plot B, I didn't see any damage to any grassy weeds. But this is where Pylex shines. It did an amazing job killing the grassy weeds in my lawn. So if you have some tough to control grassy weeds and you tried other cheaper options like quinclorac and you haven't had that much success with it, then I think Pylex may be a good option for you.
Hey,
But
listen.
we're also going to test out a herbicide
right,
combination
pause there.
that is dubbed by most turf
Wait. What does he say here?
grass professionals as the absolute best way to kill crabgrass in a lawn. And that combination is nicknamed the pile driver, which is a combination of Pylex and quinclorac.
He invented that. Quinn.
I'll be interested to see how he puts together his pile driver. So, all right. That's our Joe Knows Turf segment. I think what we can take away from that, what we can surmise is number one, identify your weeds correctly so that you are using the proper product and you're not spending more than you need to. I think that was a good takeaway, and I think that that Princess tried to impart that in his own way, but I think he could have been a bit more forceful in saying that and showing that a little bit better. I think number two is the price of the bottle is not the price it costs you to apply. It's simply the amount of scratch that you're going to have to put forward to get it in your hands, right? So, think of it like that. And lastly
there's sticker shock when you're buying Pilot. There is. Because 40 bucks, you're buying something else.
I don't get sticker shock when I know it works. How's that?
100%.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me either. It just doesn't bother me if I know it works. I mean, it's a matter of, and like Ryan said, if it can do what it's going to do and come in at such an economical price, I'm game. Because for me,
but you got to think of it from his customer or viewership, right? Is a homeowner with anywhere from 2,500 square feet to 20,000 square feet. Maybe there's another route that they can go that's more economical. If you have a small yard like that, 116,000 square feet, he can spray that lawn for like 10 years.
Yeah. You can do that for 10 years, and the thing is that I'm gonna bang on him for not picking the best product for his situation, because unless he has a lot of nimblewill, goosegrass, or bentgrass, he doesn't need Pylex. He doesn't need it. Yeah, Lushy, he just don't need it. I mean, I think the quinclorac plus 3-way would serve him a lot better, and I don't think he gains anything mixing quinclorac and Pylex either, because Ryan, what is your use case for deploying something like that? When would you bust that out?
Pylex
and quinclorac together. When would you bust that out?
Only if we're post-emergent crabgrass removal. I would not rely on one single chemistry like quinclorac. Again, I I subscribe to
Multiple modes of action.
multiple
Yeah.
modes of action theory, right? I
Mhm.
want to spray this once, and I want to see results, and I
Mhm.
want my clients to see results, and I don't want to have to come back and waste time, right? In terms of
Yes.
application, in terms of healthy turf, pushing through to fill those voids, whatever the case might be. Yeah, there's no reason. What's the phrase, Ray? We shan't be fucking around.
Exactly.
And weeds are
that's my
green.
favorite. Yeah, and the weeds are green. So I just have to wonder because theoretically, I'm just not seeing the use case scenario for something like Pilex and quinclorac together, except in what I call a salvage situation.
Mm.
And that salvage situation would be somebody didn't put down pre-emergent for whatever reason, and now it's turning into a shed fire. Then I could see it, but I don't see it as a routine application because, my God, that is a bit extreme. And if you need to go to extreme control measures on a regular basis,
Mm-hmm.
I think the overall management program needs to be relooked at.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I've got to give credit where credit's due, and the last point I'll make is that he upsold the shit out of that next video coming up. So probably lots of share sell links going his way. So hey, he's doing his job. He's doing his job. All right, let's move on now, and get hotter than a liquefied natural gas explosion at a plant. What did I do? Oh, I skipped the sponsor. You know what? I'll do it. I'll read the sponsor when I want to read the sponsor. All right? I'll get there. Okay? I just wasn't feeling it at that time. I wasn't feeling the sponsor. All right. Let's jump into our first burn here, and before we get there, we'll talk about sponsors here. All right. Our first one here comes to us from Oklahoma City. Landscaper shot at rock hits vehicle in Oklahoma City. A landscaper was shot after a rock hit a vehicle. On Monday, a man was sent to the hospital after the incident. Percy Young and his brother were landscaping when one of their weed eaters spit out a rock and hit a car. Instead of taking an insurance card, the angry driver pulled out a gun. I would have had him taken care of. My insurance is for $100,000, but I guess he wanted to cash it right there. Young said the infuriated driver got out of his car, crossed the street, and threatened the young landscapers. He said, "A rock hit my car." I tried to tell him I have insurance. He said, No, you're going to pay for it right now. That's when Young said the driver flashed a gun. I just put my hands up and said, I'm not going to deal with this. He put a gun in my back. I slammed him down, wrestling, trying to get the gun out of his hand. My brother saw this and jumps and tries to get the gun, Young said. Young's younger brother, Messiah, was shot twice, once in the leg, once in the chest, 2 inches from his heart. Goodness. I had him in a headlock, and I hear my brother crying for help, and I asked the dude, hey, if I let you up, will you please leave? Young said the driver ran to his car, sped off, and police were on the scene 3 minutes later. I just want to know if it was worth it. Was a rock in the car really worth a gunfight and trying to shoot us? I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. Would he want that done to one of his family members? Young said. Young said his brother is in the ICU at OU Med and scheduled for surgery soon. He's worried about paying for his brother's hospital bill, so he started a GoFundMe. So they've raised $3,000 here on the GoFundMe. Listen, I will channel my inner Matt Martin here, and I will attempt to say what I think he would say in the situation. And that is, what the fuck is wrong with people? Seriously. Why is there I don't understand this. I mean, I'm not anti-gun. That has nothing to do with it. It's just, that's the kind of person that one, doesn't deserve to own a gun because he's not defending himself.
Probably
in any
not
way, shape, or
legally.
form.
Probably not
Right.
legally.
You're probably
legally
right.
obtained.
Probably not. But in any sense, it's like I just don't get that whole like hair trigger thing of just losing your absolute mind over something that's like, you're really going to ruin your entire life and somebody else's because of a rock hitting your car. Like, dude, take it down to Earl Scheib or Mako and let's, $200.
Buff that
we'll take
sumbitch
care of
out.
this.
Yeah, buff that sumbitch out. No, or else.
I mean,
I know about the paintless dent removal places where they stick a suction cup and a puller on it, and they pop that out. They buff it, and no one will be the wiser. I mean, this kind of shit is not worth getting shot over. And likewise, I have to worry in my state because something like this often leads to a person being mutilated. There's no guns in Hawaii, but there's some morons that I think should have their hands and their feet cut off so that they can't hurt people.
Are we close to death with Ray?
This is it right
We
here.
brought the death talk out of Ray.
This is it. This is it. I mean, this is death talk because I don't think that a rock hitting a car is worth shooting someone over. It's not life or death. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'd be willing to bet that this is not an upstanding citizen that
Probably
is willing to call the police, to file a report, in which to go through insurance, because they probably had a bevy of warrants wanted for them and possession of an unlawful firearm and any other known controlled substance that may not been on their person or in their vehicle. There's a multitude of reasons that they probably responded the way they did. Totally wrong, not, completely out of control. And they're lucky they didn't get shot because you never know. How does he know his brother's not carrying?
You know what?
You don't know who's carrying.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's like it's a good thing that these two men decided to be a better person, and if they were carrying, not pull out that gun, because a rock hitting a car is not a life-threatening situation. I will say that for the final time. It is not life-threatening. So there is no call for firearms to come out at all.
Oh man. Well, and here's hoping that little brother can recover and be healthy and everything like that. And to all of you that are out there, and if you are a pro or whatever, and you're out on the streets, I mean, again, people are crazy. Like it's hard to not acknowledge somebody that's irate and pissed and pulling a gun on you, but just be safe out there, man. Like, above all else, it ain't worth it. Go home to your family at night. You don't want to end up on burn of return for the wrong reason. So, all right, let's jump over here to our next story here, which is checking back in with one of our folks on the shit list, and that is Lake George, New York. Story says, Judge halts Lake George herbicide plan. The Lake George Park Commission will have to wait to carry out its planned use of chemical herbicide on Lake George after a Warren County judge on Monday halted the plan. State Supreme Court Justice Robert J. Mueller has granted a preliminary injunction preventing the state agency from carrying out its plan to use Procelicor EC as a invasive Eurasian water milfoil against the invasive Eurasian water milfoil until the court can resolve a lawsuit filed last month by the Lake George Association and others. The injunction will stop the state agency from using the herbicide this year under the Adirondack Park Agency permit that required the plan to be carried out by the end of June. The APA approved the plan at its April meeting on a split vote. The Lake George Association, Lake George waterkeeper Chris Navitsky, the town of Hague and a lakeshore property owner sued to stop the use of the herbicide, alleging there were procedural errors by state officials and more analysis is needed on how the herbicide would impact Lake George. Mueller ruled that state officials did not present an argument. Mueller ruled that state officials did not present an argument to support an urgent need to apply the herbicide this summer and concluded the case should move forward while the plan is shelved. While the court is not entirely convinced that the application of Procelicor will result in injury to Lake George, petitioners have succeeded in raising questions in this regard, and it is indisputable that if Procelicor does result in injury, that injury will be irreparable, Mueller wrote. So this is interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of legal procedure involved here, and I think at some point here, we'll probably, not tonight, but at some point, pull in our chief legal analyst, Jesse Bousquet, to get a little perspective on the legalese and some of the angling that's going on here, because as I'm reading this and understanding a little bit of the backstory as I've researched here weeks prior when we talked about this story originally, which if you didn't tune in, basically, there's certain parts of this very large lake that are contaminated with an invasive species that's known as Eurasian water milfoil. Really just, basically an aquatic weed that can, cause a lot of damage, not only to fish and wildlife, but also to, recreational uses of the lake and things like that. So the state went ahead and said, hey, we want to put forward a plan and go ahead and take care of this, right, in these very, very, specific areas, right? And some people basically said, no, you're not. No, we can't do that. And, I think they might have had best intentions, but again, the way that this has sort of gone about has been, hey, you're going to poison the lake, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. We did a very deep dive probably 3 weeks ago when this story first came out.
I believe so. Yes, yes.
so.
And
I remember that episode.
Yeah.
And okay. And I think the Adirondack Lake, Association Parks, they selected something that is considered reduced risk. In the grand scheme of things, this is a reduced risk herbicide because I don't see this as a threat to human health. And I'm thinking more in terms of what would be the consequences of allowing this Eurasian milfoil to grow unchecked. What would the possible consequences be?
Yeah, and I would love to know, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into, the hearings that took place, the evidence that was offered, and also, what type of expert witness testimony was provided, things like that, because I think it's, there's certainly an argument you can make, hey, do we know everything that this herbicide is going to do? No, but I think, in terms of protecting natural resources, protecting public health, all that kind of stuff, it is a game of risk mitigation, first and foremost, and you choose the path that's going to mitigate the maximum amount of risk with the least intent or possibility of injury. And certainly the background data that we looked at on this particular product was such that it appeared to be that just about the safest possible choice to both treat the Eurasian water milfoil and protect the environment in terms of the waterways, the wildlife, the fish, and that sort of thing. So we'll see how this plays out. But man, it'd be a curious case to follow because I wonder how much legal rancor that you'll start to see when people don't agree with certain applications being made to certain areas, even though they're licensed or approved to do so by the regulating body. So we'll see how that goes. So, all right, now I'm going to do the ad read because my producer's in my ear swearing at me. You can't hear it, but I have an earbud in. And right now, I am that, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, I would do that to somebody's mother. Now, listen, that's taking it a little far. Dude,
Wow.
Dude,
He's gonna mute. He's gonna
mean-
mute your mic.
I'm just saying, like, I mean, you know, if I grew chest hair in the womb, it's not my fault, all right? It's genetics, okay? Don't get on me about it. Jeez. All right. Our show tonight and this week is brought to you by our patrons. All right? So, you know, again, we've got a growing, ever-growing group, and we certainly do appreciate it. We know that, you know, times aren't tough, but they're not easy right now. Gas is super expensive, and in fact, it's even more expensive now than the lowest tier on our Patreon, which you can find at www.patreon.com/burnandreturn. Check that out and join if you're not already a member, and you can receive some exclusive content, some cool stuff that we do in recording this show, such as the opportunity to watch us live as we do it, including our pre-show where we talk about a variety of topics that we wouldn't talk about just about anywhere else. And so we kind of share that intimate time with just our patrons. Also have some cool after-show content on our Thursday night show, Thirsty Thursday, and a bunch of other cool giveaways and cool stuff like that. And we are doing a couple of other really cool things I want to share. Number one is our movie night. We just did one the other night here, that was last Friday, I believe, with Matt, because if you don't know Matt, he is slowly, very slowly been, I've made fun of him before. It's an old joke, but he's been lifting a lot of weights. He's been getting physically fit. And he says that the reason is to get more healthy and live a longer life. I personally put my tinfoil hat on and believe it's so that he can lift up that massive rock that he lives under and can come out and visit us from time to time on Friday nights and watch a film. So we reached this milestone. It's been a really cool thing to do with Matt. We've watched 3 films so far: Fight Club, Pulp Fiction, and Step Brothers. We'll have another one next month. I honestly can't wait for it. I think it's going to be another blast because, again, it's movies that Matt hasn't seen or he can't remember if he did see or not, and it's really cool to watch that. The other thing that we're shooting for, that you may not know, is 125 patrons, right? If we get to that amount of patrons, which, you know, we hope to do here over the summertime, that should solidify our annual gathering that we started just last year in the city of Louisville. Got together with about 40 or 50 of our real good friends that traveled near and far to come see us, talk to us, do a live show, kind of like what we're doing here and kind of like what we do on Thirsty Thursday, party with everybody, visit, and just hang out with the crew. And so we're going to find a way to do that no matter what, but if 125 patrons get on board, then that for sure becomes an annual event, no questions asked, and if we stay at that level forever, then we'll have a party forever and ever, every fall, getting together, even getting Ray over here to the mainland, which if you didn't know that happened, it actually did. We have video of Matt freaking the fuck out as it happened. It's wild. He told us just the other week that he cries about it when he drives to work sometimes, thinking about it because he's overcome with joy. So, pretty cool stuff. That's our Patreon. Please visit it. Check it out. Join us. And if any of us ever asked you to smash a like button or subscribe button, please, you have the opportunity to mail us dirty things or say things into my earpiece that J Pink does. Thank you. All right, let's go on.
Less
to
than a cup
the
of coffee a
returns.
day, you too can enjoy.
That's true.
I'm back.
Well, here we are. Listen, we've talked about a lot of bad news. We've talked about people getting shot. We've talked about large explosions. We've talked about clandestine fertilizer sales and things like that. Let's talk about a little bit of good news, if we can, folks, here before we start winding down the show. So, first thing here on the docket with our returns, something I found fairly interesting as I was perusing the news this week. It's an article Politico, the European Politico. This is entitled "Glyphosate Not Carcinogenic," says EU Chemicals Agency. The controversial herbicide ingredient glyphosate does not cause cancer in humans, according to a scientific opinion published by the European Chemicals Agency on Monday. The agency's Committee for Risk Assessment found that the available scientific evidence did not meet the criteria to classify glyphosate for specific target organ toxicity or as a carcinogenic, mutagenic, or reprotoxic substance. The opinion does not deviate from the stance that ECHA took in 2017 when it also did not classify glyphosate as carcinogenic. Then, as now, ECHA said that glyphosate can cause serious eye damage and is toxic to aquatic life. The committee will publish its report by mid-August. ECHA's opinion will influence the EU's decision on whether to ban or reauthorize the herbicide for use, with the European Commission expected to make a recommendation by July 2023 at the earliest, after several delays. In the U.S., thousands of litigants have gone to court alleging that their non-Hodgkin's lymphomas was caused by Roundup, a herbicide sold by Monsanto and now owned by the German chemicals giant Bayer, which contains glyphosate. The World Health Organization's cancer research arm concluded in 2015 that glyphosate is a probable carcinogenic compound, prompting the EU to renew it for 5 years instead of 15 in 2017. ECHA's remit is the only to look at the inherent hazardness of the substance, not its real-world risk of causing harm. The EPA, Food Safety Authority in Parma, Italy, is looking at that part of it as a parallel study, expected to be ready in July of next year. So there we have it, fellas. I think these folks are looking specifically at the carcinogenicity of this particular substance, this compound, and I think I'm interested to hear the real world. I think that is going to probably look at more like residues and things like that, where it's found in nature and how it may build up over time. Obviously, I'd be interested to see that real world, Ray, because talk about the coefficient of adsorption with respect to Roundup and why that's an important fact about that chemical.
Okay, here's a known fact or known property of glyphosate is that it is very tightly absorbed by what are known as soil colloids. And soil colloids include the clay and the organic matter present in soil. But what that absorption means as well is that once soil absorbs it, it is no longer biologically active in the environment. In other words, when soil absorbs it, it is no longer a herbicide. Otherwise, if it were not absorbed, then glyphosate would be a super effective and potentially hazardous herbicide because it would then be something that continues to kill after it has been applied. Whereas with glyphosate, you could theoretically apply glyphosate over, say, turfgrass that was seeded that day and not harm the grass seed that's supposed to emerge later. And the reason why you can do that is because of that strong absorption onto soil particles. So, and in order for these environmental chemists to even assay soil for glyphosate residue, guess what they have to do to that soil in order to extract the glyphosate out of it?
Lay it on me.
They have to reflux that soil in extremely strong acids to literally decompose and degrade all of the organic matter and clay in that soil. They have to make it so that that dirt is no longer dirt. It's literally boiled in acid for hours in order to get that glyphosate out of the soil. So when somebody says
Karen's
that,
yard every day.
yeah, so when somebody says that glyphosate is environmentally persistent, I also have to keep that in the context of, is that glyphosate then released back out of the soil and becoming biologically active again? And the answer is no. It is not. Okay, it is not. So it's different from other forever chemicals, because most of the other forever chemicals, do you know what their strike is against them?
What's that?
The other forever chemicals are readily re-released back out of soil and able to become biologically active again. So PFAS, for example, problem with PFAS is that it doesn't stay absorbed to soil. Instead, it releases back out very easily. Same is true of things like DDT or PCBs. It's readily re-released back out of the soil, back into the environment. It doesn't stay locked up because it doesn't take much, for example, to assay soil for one of these forever chemicals. All you have to do is do a low temperature wash with some very common solvents like acetone, and you get your DDT out of the soil, or you get your PFAS out of the soil. It just comes out in the solvent. Whereas with glyphosate, my understanding is that it's a long process of boiling that sample in acid, and very strong acids.
Yeah, I think I'm actually even more interested now to see this. It sounds like it's over a year away, but July of next year, this real world test that's coming out of Parma, Italy. I would be really anxious to understand their materials, their methods, how they're going to go through this, and just understand and unpack the difference between, okay, it's not carcinogenic, but what other issues does this cause potentially downstream, right? If we use it, in the situations that we currently do, right? So in agriculture, our tiny little sliver of glyphosate use in turf, right, relative to everything else. So it ought to be interesting to see. So we'll keep our eyes peeled on that one. Now let's jump over here, and we got the Ohio Capitol Journal is briefing us here on a couple of things. So members of the U.S. House Agriculture Committee are considering how to help farmers struggling with rising fertilizer, fuel, seeds, and chemical costs. The unfortunate harvest of the war in Ukraine, strains on global supply system, and inflation and severe weather. All right, that was a weird first sentence. A panel of the committee heard from agriculture economists Thursday as lawmakers debate how to structure a federal safety net in the next farm bill due when the current programs expire in 2023. The debate comes as traditional corn, soy, and wheat farmers straddle both sides of inflation and the economic effects from the war in Ukraine. They're seeing both huge increases in prices for their crops and soaring costs for everything that they have to purchase to plant them. Quote, since 2018, when the last farm bill was written, farmers have experienced the economic impacts of the trade war with China, marketing and supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic, historic weather events, and now extreme volatility in the commodity and input markets, said Rep. Sherry Bustos, an Illinois Democrat and the chairwoman of the subcommittee that oversees farm commodities. This all has implications for the next farm bill, Bustos added. Representative Glenn Thompson, a Pennsylvania Republican, said he wants to pay special consideration to the margins for farmers as members work on the next farm bill. Thompson is the top Republican on the House Agriculture Committee and could helm the farm bill process if Republicans take control of the House. The bottom line is that agriculture is a business. At the end of the day, it's not what you bring in, but the margin you are left with. I have tremendous concerns with where we are headed right now. Talking about holes in the safety net, the Farm Bill includes a long-standing safety net program that offers some risk protection and financial support to farmers. That includes crop insurance and farm commodity programs, which pay farmers if crop prices drop. But the programs don't account for the current challenges farmers face of rising costs for fuel, fertilizer, pesticides, and seeds. Economists suggested that lawmakers consider pilot programs geared to aid farmers struggling in those margins. Input costs are increasing, and with inflation, you're going to have intense pressure where that safety net will be weakened, said Ronald Rainey, director of the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. The big commodity crops, especially corn and wheat, are seeing high prices, due in part to the disruption of the global market that is usually went to Ukraine and Russia as important players. Anticipated prices for 2022 U.S. wheat currently 50% higher than they were in January, according to Joseph Jansen, an agricultural economist at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. Futures prices for corn and soybeans are also on the rise, 30% for corn, 20% higher for beans. But agricultural economists told lawmakers that the sky-high prices may give a false impression, since farmers are also paying more than ever for fertilizer and fuel. The benchmark prices for crude oil and fertilizer prices have approximately tripled between January of 2021 and March of 2022. Russia and Belarus are also major fertilizer producers and exporters. Those input prices are expected to stay high for the next few years. What we know is going to happen is prices are going to decline, but input prices are going to stay up for a while, and they always do. And that is going to leave people in a cross-price squeeze, said Joe Outlaw, co-director of the Agricultural and Food Policy Center at TAMU. Joe Outlaw.
That's politics, a brother.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
Or a cousin or an uncle.
The high fertilizer prices and energy have both short and long-term effects for agriculture. If farmers respond by planting less and using less fertilizer, they will have a smaller harvest, bringing in less income for their farms and potentially exacerbating rising food costs. So below here, they kind of talk about the farm bill process. Every 5 years, they kind of go through all the nuts and bolts of it, and there's certain things that have to go into it, right? So, but the issue is that can the government respond quickly enough and be nimble enough to do what needs to be done? And I don't know. I think that's the answer is, there's the whole, midterm election thing. Like there's a lot at play here leading into a busy 2023, regardless of how elections turn out and things like that. Just from a legislative standpoint, there's a lot of work to do. And the question is, we will have a better handle on how we've done domestically when it comes to this, right? In terms of the margins that farmers are left with relative to, what they are able to harvest, what they're able to bring to market, and what their input costs are. But is that going to be enough to set the course for the next 5 years? Or, gentlemen, do we overshoot the bar? Is this, enough blip on the radar that, in 2 years, prices moderate, both in terms of, grain prices of what, people are able to get it for in market, and then finally in terms of input prices, and now we've overshot with our farm bill and we're subsidizing too much, and what are the mechanisms that we'll have to maybe step down the governmental support for some of these programs? I don't know the answer. I am not a legislative expert, but it seems to me that we're trying to predict the future, and if there's anything that the last 2+ years have taught us, it is that we have no fucking idea what's going to happen, even tomorrow. So, yeah, this will be an interesting exercise to watch them go through. What do y'all think?
Well, I think that the present situation, though, is not good, because if a grower cuts back on the amount of crop that he's planting, that to me actually leads to a downward spiral, because that then decreases the amount of food and commodities available, and that raises prices. But when prices go up, does the income of the average working person also go up? No, it doesn't. And so something has to be done somehow, some way, or else we are going to be faced with a Sri Lanka-like situation.
Wow.
Yes,
I mean, I think the and maybe it's too simplistic of a view, but I think the world is looking to us right now of saying, hey, this is what you are all good at. This is what you're here for, is
Fix
to
it.
feed a significant portion, just our farmers, right? You're here to feed a significant portion of the world, outside of, our domestic needs, and we need you. So, I sincerely hope, weather's good. I've seen, some pictures, and they're very isolated areas, but, tornadoes or big storms, like straight line winds that have flattened crops, things like that, like just, horrible situations. And I just hope that we don't see a ton of that. I hope that we don't see big hurricanes, on the Gulf Coast that are shutting down oil refineries, like all the things that, that nature could throw at us that would really make an already painful situation really hurt. I hope none of that happens, but for now, I'll be cautiously optimistic.
I don't know. You're seeing it at the grocery store when you go, that there's just not everything's there. I mean, I went today to go get a pork belly. There was no pork belly.
Yeah.
None.
What?
Nope. DJs, no pork bellies. So, I mean, like, yeah, do I eat a pork belly every day? No. Can I live without it? Yes. But is that an unusual factor for us? Yes. Why?
And
who knows?
I think that's what it's going to be too. It's going to be a lot of how do we learn to not have everything that we absolutely want to have right now be here when we need it. And so I think that's sort of where the farmers are, is they're being asked to, put something in our hands that, otherwise wouldn't be there if they didn't do their work and didn't put their asses on the line to make sure that happened. And so I think this year it's just a lot more scary, right? It's a lot bigger rewards, certainly, but, how do you manage and mitigate the risks, just like we were talking about in the previous stories. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep our eyes peeled, but let's root for farmers this year, please. The world needs them. So, all right, with that, we are going to wrap this thing up. We have coming up this Thursday, so if you are listening to this when it drops on Wednesday the 15th, on Thursday the 16th, we have a live call-in show. It should be a lot of fun. We also have a plethora of mailbag questions that have poured in here over the last several days here or so. I think things are starting to heat up a little bit out there, boys, and it's not the green grass. It's not the green grass of May, and the sound of music. The hills are alive. Any of that stuff. It is now. Oh shit, that didn't look like that yesterday. What's going on? So let's see if we can help people through those 80-degree nights, those 100-degree days, and make the turf just a little bit better than we had it yesterday, and not, oh shit, that didn't look like that yesterday. Gentlemen, thank you for your participation. Thanks always for your company, and we'll see you all on the next one.